That's a pretty piece of music. It's by Temba Makisi, and it's called Light of Our Life, and he was the pianist there. Now, co-author with Arthur Goldstruck is Nikki Bush, and she's in studio. Their book, Tech Savvy Parenting, has just been released, published by Bookstorm. Good afternoon to you, Nikki.
Hello, Tamara.
Now, you have been here before.
I have.
Just chatting just about such a thing. But, Nikki, I just wanted to start off by asking you, why are young people so strongly attracted to social media and technology?
Well, if we talk about young people being teenagers,
yes.
In terms of their age and stage, they are in that time of life where socializing is a very big thing. In fact, they have no control over the need to socialize. It's a biological thing that happens when they enter puberty. So the cell phone industry, the internet, the ability to connect is there more than ever before. It's now on steroids. So what they would ordinarily be doing in the real world, they can now do both in the real world and in the virtual world. Yeah. And often when I speak to groups of grade 6s through to grade 12s, and it would usually be like a 16 or 17-year-old girl who answers this question, how many friends do you have on Facebook? She'll tell me 900.
Yes.
And I'll go, oh my goodness.
Yes.
How many of those do you really know in real life? And that's the telling question, of course, and that's where the big danger lies, in that our children are connecting a lot of the time with people they do not know, or a friend of a friend who may not actually be that good a person with any good intentions for them.
No, exactly. I mean, we all remember sort of spending all day with our best friend and then coming home and immediately getting on the telephone to them.
Then your mother would be on your back saying, why do you need to talk to them?
You know what my father did? He used to get the radio and turn it right up high and put it right next to me, which is, oh, Dad, you know. But one remembers those sort of days. And this is just more of the same, only high tech.
Yes, high tech. And the irritation for parents is that they cannot hear that conversation. Our parents could hear us on the telephone.
Yes.
They knew what we were talking about. They had a handle on the topic, on what we were saying, how we were responding, how we were feeling.
Yeah.
Now, because it's in a text-based format, our parents don't know what their kids are talking about or how they're feeling. Yes. And it's that sort of invisible nature of this communication that can send parents into paralysis because they fear what they don't know.
I joined Facebook.
Very good.
They're confessions of Tamara Lepine-Williams. I sort of, stalk my poor children. But, you needed to know what was going on.
Well, there are new ways to connect in the world today.
Yes.
And there are more and more layers of communication being added to just a verbal telephone call.
Well, you're here to tell us that, don't do what I do, but do what Nikki suggests. But what questions, just first of all, should technophobic parents be asking themselves? What about the parent who laughs and says, well, I don't know anything about the internet?
I think there are extreme parenting techniques going on which are not serving children today in this very high-tech on-screen world. The one is the parent who says, eek, I don't know anything about this. You just go ahead and do what you want. So that carte blanche mentality, letting the kids loose
Big
on
mistake.
the internet. Big mistake.
Yeah.
And then the other extreme is the parent who says, I know the dangers out there. Don't you dare go there. It's access denied. And children will just find another way.
Yes.
And they'll just go behind their parents' back. So it really is a case of finding one's middle ground, understanding your child's age and stage, getting a handle on the new look world, the new media that our children are engaging with, because, we can't run away from this. This is not a fad. It's not going away.
No.
Business today is operating on these new social media networks, etc. Our children do need the skills to learn how to do this, and so that they can do it confidently when they hit that world of work.
Yeah.
And that is actually one of the problems with school today, is that it's not reflecting what's going on in the outside world. And our children know the minute they get out of school, they have access to all these devices and all the information of the world at their fingertips. And what we're needing to do is make the education situation more reflective of the real world.
And they're not just using it to do their homework, are they?
Absolutely not. There's entertainment and education. It abounds on the internet. There's great content. There's really awful content that you would really rather that your children weren't exposed to. And that's why, as parents, we have to take responsibility for teaching our children how to be good decision makers. This has become quite a big role for parents today. And unless you have a relationship with your children, unless you connect with your children, how are you going to pass on a value system so that they can make those judgment calls when they need to? So while we talk high tech, we're actually talking high touch. Because our children's biggest safety app is actually our relationship with them. And it's the one you can't buy on a supermarket shelf.
Well, I like what you say about eye-to-eye contact, face-to-face interface.
Well, isn't that where we develop trust?
Yes.
Where we develop emotional intelligence, by seeing the impact of our words on somebody's face. And emotional intelligence just can't be taught on a screen. And so we have to give our children those kind of ground rules within that context that family creates. That we don't say things online or via text that we wouldn't say to somebody face to face. And if you've got a lonely child who spends a lot of time on a screen, that becomes quite difficult to teach them, because they're not having enough face-to-face time. I had a grade 5 teacher tell me the other day that on Monday mornings, as in most classrooms, there's time to share news. So everybody sits in a circle and they share what happened to them on the weekend. And she was saying there's this one little boy who spends the entire weekend playing Minecraft. Now, Minecraft itself is not a bad game. In fact, it's being used educationally in schools in Sweden and around the world in the classroom to teach about how to build cities and electricity grids and water systems and all sorts of things. And it really is a very good game. So we talk about the gamification of learning. That's one of the trends in the learning space. But anyway, this grade 5 little boy spends all weekend on the computer or on his phone playing Minecraft. He gets to share news on a Monday morning and he has nothing to share. And it's become a very obvious problem. And the teachers had to call in the parents to say, this child's not having a balanced experience, a balanced exposure to life. He has nothing to share with children beyond what he sees on a screen. And I think that's a nice extreme example to bring up, because in situations where parents are very busy, they often default to a screen. Therefore, they allow their children to go onto devices, onto programs, because it gets their kids out of their hair.
Yeah. But I think what's so interesting to me is where you say that, you know, being on a screen can become addictive, and that whole sort of thing of sort of dopamine injection that sort of addictive thing that one gets from the pleasure center of one's brain apparently is released by playing these games.
Yes.
And so easily it can become an addictive thing.
You know, you have to think, when you take a look at a lot of these games, and as I said, there are good and bad out there, they're all very rewards based. So they are multi-level games and multi-layered games. And one of the things that kids love about them is that they progress through the game. And as they achieve mastery at one level, they move to the next one. So they get a great feeling of achievement. And often, it's all virtual, isn't it? They're not really achieving anything in life as we would classify it in normal face-to-face terms. And they want to keep pushing themselves to that next level. And when they achieve it, there is this release of dopamine that makes them feel fantastic. So they're after that feeling again. And then you say, 5 minutes to dinner, and they go, oh no, Mom, we're in the middle of a level. And they get really upset and irritated because they don't want to stop where they are, because they've got to get to that next level. And, you know, they think it's going to be 5 minutes. So they say, give me just 5 more minutes. But you know, as a parent, it's going to be another 20 or 30 minutes before they get there. But take this back into the real world. As parents, when we're trying to create good habits in our children, like hang up your towel, make your bed, we often have star charts. So children are very used to rewards. And if you look at the commercial scene, how many loyalty cards do we have in our purses and wallets?
True.
And if you do this here, you will get points there. This is exactly the way the gaming world works as well. So our children really are immersed in this reward culture. It's
Already.
not strange for them. They've been living this way their whole lives. They've been watching us play these games in the real world. Now they're playing them online. But we do need to be very aware of the content they're playing with as well, because it's not all good for them.
Now, you have a whole chapter on the evolution of learning. Is learning stuff and knowing stuff less important than knowing how to access it these days?
Well, yes, we live in a world where all the information on the planet is at our fingertips. Just ask any child any question, and they'll just say, just Google it. So when you have that situation where information is free, and it hasn't always been that way.
No.
Information used to sit in the hands of very few people in the 1600s to the 1800s. And then in the 1800s to the 1900s, with all those inventions and the printing press and all those things, anybody who could read could now have access to information. Today we live in a world where power has come to the individual because you can access whatever information you like anytime. And that leads us to question the role of education in a child's life, because teachers have traditionally been the people who were the gatekeepers of all the knowledge in the world, and their role was to impart knowledge, then to test to see how much you retained. And that's changing dramatically today, because what is the role of education? So we're looking now for a smart teacher who's going to work in a smart classroom. That doesn't mean we're not looking to get the teacher out of the classroom, to take the teacher away from the education experience. But, as we were saying earlier, we need to reflect the real world back into the classroom more and more. And so teachers who used to work with inkwells and quills, that was the media of the day, then started working with pen and paper and books, because that was the media of the day. And now our teachers have to use the media of today, which is often on-screen stuff, to help to engage children more, to help to keep their attention, to help to stimulate their curiosity in the world. But the teacher's job, they are trained in cognitive development and emotional development of children. Their job is to match the media to the age and stage.
Okay.
And it's not to replace themselves.
No.
If teachers are using technology just to teach old stuff in a new way, that's not the aim of using technology in the classroom. It's actually to find new ways to teach, new ways to engage kids, so that they don't just access information, but learn how to manipulate it and then use it for some greater purpose. And there really are some stunning stories out there of what young people are able to do while they're still in high school.
It is extraordinary. I mean, I love your sort of phrase, death by PowerPoint, because, where you've got a teacher who's, PowerPoints can be really dreary. But getting a teacher to help you access the information. And I suppose PowerPoint is really the same as a sort of chalk and a blackboard. It can be dire. But I was sort of interested the fact that you sort of say that 60 to 70% of the jobs our children will have don't actually exist today.
Yeah, and this is true. This is the reality. And 60 to 70% of our kids ultimately will be entrepreneurs at some point in their careers. And in fact, most of them will probably have periods of unemployment. If you think about careers of the future, our kids will have portfolios of careers a little bit like a movie director who works really hard for 6 months and then doesn't work at all for a year. But they get really paid when they do work. So we're likely to see our children having 10 to 14 jobs by the time they're 38.
Yes.
Which is really a lot of chopping and changing. Our children are going to have to be very strong at being able to adapt and adopt. They need to be resilient.
Yes.
Because the world of work is going to change so quickly that jobs will become obsolete that were once there, and knowledge will become obsolete. So you really are looking for a child who has what I call X factors for success. Not just good grades, but they also need to think out of the box. They need to be resilient. They need to love learning. They really need to be so engaged in their own learning journey. Absolutely. Yes. They need to be able to relate to themselves as well as relate to others. So self-knowledge, we talk EQ once again, which means that we really, really can't let technology do all the work for us. as parents, we need to get stuck in there. We need to be teaching our children how to navigate that information superhighway. And yes, we're learning with our children as we go along, because we are really playing catch up. They know this technology much better than us.
You've got some great catchphrases like "talk your children clever." Sit down, talk to them, go for walks with them. And I also like that sort of phrase, nature deficit disorder, that your children just never go outside, never walk on the ground, never feel the grass under their feet. And it's something that we all did, running around in sprinklers on the lawn, or, however your childhood was. But it involved being outside and playing games. And I think that's something
Definitely.
that we need to keep
I
going.
think the thing is to make sure that we don't ever lose sight of the fact that we are multisensory beings. We have all these senses that need stimulating, not just our ears and our eyes off a screen, but actually we are touchy-feely people. And if you look at what's going on in Japan and Korea at the moment, they're setting up internet fasting camps for teenagers who have overdosed.
Really?
Yes, and in those fasting camps there is no access to a plug point. And that is what is freaking kids out. They need to be in a place where they can plug in their devices to charge them, so that they can always access the world. It's the always-on generation.
I don't think it's just that it could be me, actually.
Us too, absolutely. I think we're all falling into that trap.
That's terrible.
I actually think that parents are going to have to make a very concerted effort every now and again to take the family to the bush, to places where there is no signal, to places where they can't plug in, where they can actually be. Because as you can keep plugging in, you can do more. And there's no downtime.
No, there isn't.
And
there's always something you can do.
We're going to see more and more burnout because we just don't switch off.
No.
So yes, we have to be the gatekeepers as parents.
Job, yeah.
Yeah.
Nikki, we're out of time. It's gone very quickly. I'm just looking at your book here. It's called Tech Savvy Parenting, a guide to raising self-children in a digital world. Nikki Bush and Arthur Goldstruck. And it is published by, who is this?
Bookstorm.
Oh, Bookstorm. There you are. You see, it's got a lightning thing there. Okay, thank you so much for coming in, Nikki. As always, it's a great pleasure chatting to you and very informative.